this is Dazzling One, and this week I'm just going to ramble about some things that are on my mind. This is part 9 and so one of the first things I want to discuss is the college protests going on across the country. A lot of it started with Mizzou after there were the hunger strikes because students complained of racism on the campus. The faculty at the school failed to address the issue, and many people later on came out and said that the guy who went on the hunger strike's father had a net worth of over $20 million. And as somebody who went to high school with people who went to Mizzou, I know a lot of people and they post a lot of their opinions on Facebook and Twitter. It elicited emotional response for almost everyone that I knew, and with it I saw people supporting Concerned Student 1950 and I saw people completely against it. And one thing I noticed about every incident that occurs similar to this is it always manages to rile people up, disturb emotions. And I almost feel as if this is all part of that Hegelian dialectic, because while people are divided over this group versus that group, the same thing with the Million Student March. Many students across the country marched for free tuition because they believe that they shouldn't be in debt later on in life. And I saw a lot of people on the opposing end saying that these kids are socialist, that they want everything handed to them and so forth. And as someone who's college age, who's currently in college, I can see both sides and why they say what they say. And whether or not I agree or disagree with something, I feel like people, because of interactive media and because of the fact that 20 years ago you couldn't post if you agreed or disagreed, people kept it to themselves or they quietly chatted about it in groups, whereas now the world knows and there's lots of arguments and everyone's always heated up over this stuff. It's creating a lot of division. You're seeing young against old, this race against that race, male against female, this political group against that one, a lot of liberal versus conservative. I feel like that gap is widened in the recent years. As someone who is neither conservative or liberal, I consider myself independent of all of that, and I can definitely see issues on both sides. People get so attached to their group or their party, almost like a sports team, and it almost makes me sick to some degree because they're just so full of hate, so full of anger, so full of depression over something. The media really is propaganda to this day. You can't turn it on without hearing about some kind of injustice, some kind of racism, some kind of terrorist act, or some type of horrible thing that happened to someone, and it creates this fear within people. The same thing goes with what happened with the Paris attacks. As soon as I got on Facebook, I saw everybody had the French flag overlay in support of France. My prayers go out to people who lost family members in France, as well as people who lost family members in any other of the attacks, like what happened with Nigeria or what happened with the Beirut bombings. And many people pointed to the fact that Facebook was kind of playing favorites when they decided that they were going to have a check the status of French relatives, but not for the Beirut bombings in Lebanon, or the fact that when the Kenyan bombings, I believe, happened and many people died, they didn't necessarily have where you could change the overlay of your profile picture to a Kenyan flag. Even with Nigeria today, I'm yet to hear about some kind of overlay for the Nigerian flag or for the Lebanese flag. And of course, that gets a lot of people upset, and I definitely think it's kind of strange that they don't do that and why only Western countries seem to get this kind of response and attention. Once again, it creates more issues, and just to see how so many people are afraid of ISIS. Now, the thing about it is, a lot of people around me are very anti-Islam. It's not really the civilians' fault. If you go back in history to Operation Ajax in 1953, it later came out that the CIA aided in the Iranian coup that led to the rise of radical Islam. And with that, we've seen other organizations who have been suspected under Operation Gladio to be products of Western powers and who's supplying them with the ammo and so forth. Even Vladimir Putin at the G20 summit said that 40 countries, including some at the G20 summit, were funding ISIS. It's not a coincidence. The Russian jet on October 31st of this year, Halloween Day, a skull-shaped asteroid passes by almost as if it's a ritual of some sort of death. And then you have the Friday the 13th attacks, which, once again, Friday the 13th is considered an unlucky, superstitious day. It seemed there was also a UFO that passed by Earth on Friday the 13th. It was an unidentified flying piece of space debris, as they claim, which I found also suspicious, especially after the skull-shaped asteroid that occurred on the same day that the Russian plane crashed in Egypt, and all of those people died. Once again, another death, another supposed flying object in outer space. It's like a blood sacrifice. As time goes by, and we move closer to what some may call the New World Order, they do need to have this chaos and to bring order. The fallen angels and demons are demanding more blood, and that is what they're giving them. They're calling for a war, and really this whole war is not what people think it is. The thing I found interesting was Albert Pike and how he had this letter that he wrote. He mentioned 3 world wars, and the third one he mentioned Islam and how they would use that to bring about nihilism and atheism, which in turn isn't really what they want. It's about the Luciferian doctrine, but it would kind of bring the skepticism that would wipe out the belief of all religions. Sadly enough, I think this is where we're going. Whether or not his letter was something fabricated later on by someone else, still we're seeing this play out. While people are busy hating on other civilians, the people in power are busy making their moves like a chess match. The King of Jordan mentioned that this could lead to a third world war. Pope Francis said that it was a piecemeal of World War III. Although the media has come out and said that this is not World War III, even though France has said that they're at war now and they're having airstrikes in Syria, still we're seeing this narrative unfold. About a week ago in California, there were the Trident missiles that many people mistook for UFOs in the sky. People questioned why they would test these Trident missiles in a populated area. Of course, they said this is protocol, this happens more often than people think, but still some are saying that we're already at war and we've been at war. And so it's interesting to see how there's different stories according to different world leaders, and there's all of these strange events. And I do believe that we are headed in that direction. To top it off, we have a lot of tension building within our own country, whereas we have the race relations are at an all-time low. There's the refugees that 31 states governors had said they're not going to allow in. Even on Facebook, I saw someone asking people to sign a petition to add Missouri to that list. And it's just crazy to see how emotional everyone's getting over these issues that the media is helping to propagate. And it kind of reminds me of what Jesus said in Matthew 24:6, "And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet." Even though we're hearing about this, it's definitely a sign of the end. We're not necessarily there yet. The good news is you shouldn't be afraid. I know it's easy to get caught up in the emotional response of everything going on. So my advice is to keep your eyes on God and to pray for the situations at hand, and to, even if you have to, turn off your television, get off of social media if it's triggering you to feel a certain way, because some people are literally getting depressed and afraid and worried and sick of everything, and they're looking for escapes. And rather than going and feeding those negative emotions, pull back, pull away from. I'm not saying to live under a rock and never know what's going on, but just be cognizant of your surroundings, but don't get sucked into everything that you're hearing and reading. And remember at the end of the day that all faith and our trust lies in God. And I hope my message was encouraging. Have a wonderful week. Take care, and God bless you.